Hello, my dear students. So, today's theme is how we can teach speaking and listening in the classroom. This is presentation presented by Bolatova A. So, let's start our lesson. What is listening? Listening is the process of attaching meaning to sounds. Although speaking is the most important communication skill, the ability to listen is more necessary in the process of learning. More importantly, the act of skillful listening is the basis for developing intelligence. When does the listening begin? Listening begins at birth when someone first speaks to the newborn child, one of the first communication skills a baby learns. Although an infant's attention span is quite brief, it does respond by gurgling, looking, turning its eyes and head, and learning to recognize voices. That is why talking often to a baby is important. Intelligence grows only if someone speaks to a baby, eliciting a response. What is the difference between hearing and listening? We hear with our ears, but we listen with our minds. Every day we hear many noises and sounds, birds singing, trucks passing, clocks ticking, yet we pay little attention to them because they are not essential to any special learning. However, we listen to sounds and voices when we want to remember specific information for later use. Why do we listen? To learn, to enjoy, to act and react, to appreciate, to make decisions, to develop attitudes and values, to recognize danger, and to get information, to develop thinking skills. So, is listening easy or difficult? Listening effectively is difficult, especially for young children. In school, for example, teachers have a relatively easy job in comparison to their students. They give information or direction, and their task is larger finish it. On the other hand, students must listen to the information or directions. The second one, remember every detail, and the third one, follow the route by applying the information to the directions. So, 10 rules of listening in young learners classes. First one, although listening is a receptive skill, the students are not and should not be passive while listening. In other words, they should be engaged and work in the listening task. The students should be engaged with different listening tasks according to their age, learning style, listening capacity, and phonological awareness. The language teacher should train the students to listen to the English sound carefully. The teacher should train the young learners to follow simple to get them ready to develop other language skills. Different listening tasks should be addressed in classes. Listen and do, listen and draw, listen and color, listen and mime, listen and predict, listen and respond, listen and write means literacy, listen and identify, listen to match, listen and complete, listen and read. The students should be given a different task each time they listen to the same text. For example, first they listen to have general ideas, second listen to complete the blanks, third listen to check your answers. Input through tips, readers, or teachers, modeling should be provided. The audio tool should be in good quality. The teacher should be aware of the importance of familiarity with the context, language, task, voice, and etc. Difficulty: what's expected as output in the teacher's language, repeating, simplifying, and using gestures, intonation, and formulaic expressions that help children to figure out the intended meaning. It's important to embed listening in the stories, games, routines, rhymes, and songs. They may not understand every word, but they can understand the meaning from the context, visuals, and the gestures as in life. So, listening using a song. Prepare the learners before they listen to a meeting. Show them pictures of characters from the song. If it is a song about teddy bears, then bring in some teddy bears to show them. If the teddy bears sing sections of the song, then use them as puppets and then make them actually sing the song. Use actions as much as possible to accompany songs so that the children can participate. This will help build their confidence, increase their enjoyment, and give them extra clues as to the meaning of the words they are listening to. They should imagine what they are going to hear. Again, staying with the teddy bears, ask them if they think the teddy bear is happy or sad. When they are listening, they should always have something to do. They need to reason for listening. You could allocate part of the song to a small cluster of children, so they have to listen them out for their part and sing along to that part of only. Speaking is a skill just like swimming, driving a car, or playing ping pong. Too often in the traditional classroom, the learning of English has been relegated to linguistic knowledge only. Knowledge of vocabulary and the grammar rules, with little or no attention paid to practicing language skill. So, many language learners regard speaking ability as a measure of knowing a language. Language learners need to recognize that speaking involves three areas of knowledge: mechanics, pronunciation, grammar, and the vocabulary; functions, transaction and interaction; social and cultural rules and the norms; turn-taking, rate of speech, length of pauses between relative rows of participants. So, what about the teaching speaking for young learners? First one is the knowing the basics, motivating students to speak, strategies that encourage participation, methods to speaking, and a technique to teach speaking. Teaching speaking for young learners. Teaching speaking for young language learners is an interesting and a challenging duty for teachers for some consideration. In one hand, teaching speaking for young learners are individuals of every age who are interested in many new things, such as the foreign language English. In this level, young learners seem to have the same proficiency in speaking as novice level. The characteristics of novice level is the student's ability to communicate meaningfully with learned material, and the oral production consists of isolated words and perhaps a few highly frequency phrases with functional communication ability. Knowing the basics, young learners are like sponges. They soak up everything we say and how we say it. Thus, clear and correct pronunciation is of vital importance. Since young learners repeat exactly what they hear, what has been learned at an early stage is difficult to change later. One of the rules that apply very slowly and steadily, through constant revision and recycling. Always strive to achieve a positive and relaxed atmosphere in young learners' classroom, as is proved a decision factor and achieving maximum results. With help of mixed activities such as dialogues, oral revision, chants, songs, poems, and the rhymes, students speaking abilities grow. The pronunciation gets better and the awareness of the language improves. Interaction is an important way of learning. Therefore, increased oral emphasis should be included in our teaching to give the students as much alone time as possible. Motivating students to speak. To motivate students in English or in language context, teachers should include many activities and strategies that attract students' attention and make them interested in the lesson. Activities need to be child-centered and the communication should be authentic. The teacher should consider in the activities a focus on meaning and value, not correctness, a focus on collaboration and the social development, the provision of a rich context, and the teachings of all skills through the activities. Strategies that encourage participation. To motivate students in EFL context, teachers should include many activities and strategies that attract students' attention and that makes them interested in the lesson. The teacher can use a model for teaching young learners by imitating, practicing control and anatomy. As the other stages, child love imitating. Methods to teach speaking. Interviewing someone or being interviewed, doing in drill, learning the dialects, reading aloud, songs, poems, rhymes, and chants. Design speaking tasks using Roblox for speaking tasks, and the common characteristics in successful speaking tasks. Learning the dialects. Learning dialects by heart is a definite no-no. It's much better and far more useful to substitute the words so that they are true to students and their words. Students use his or her own variation. There is an obvious transition from pure imitation to conscious changing, which speeds up remembering and offers varied communicative opportunities. By imitating, sharing, and discussing, students benefit modeling, understanding, and picking it up seem to be natural. 10 rules of speaking in young learning classes. Although it's a productive skill, the children may not feel ready to produce oral language, so teachers and parents should be patient. However, language should be used meaningfully in the classroom, not just in isolated chunks. Children need experience of a range of discourse types to increase their skills to the task designed for in class use should be varied. The teacher should take into account developmental development stages in language learning, those in language second, and the third student's age to design the speaking activities. Designing authentic activities such as role plays and dialogues based on real-life conversations motivates the students so they willingly take the role of imaginary person. So, the teacher should be aware of the problems young learners for the speaking is not an individual skill. They need to be encouraged to practice in pairs and in groups. A good speaking activity should involve all students, not some of them. Speaking songs and the chants. Using songs and the chants in class gives the children a chance to listen and reproduce the language they hear. They are working on the sound, rhythm, and intonation. Remember, when you speak or sing, keep it simple but very importantly natural, so that when they copy what you can say, they can have a chance of sounding natural. Speaking whole class hard drills. If you have a large class, to ensure the language they produce is not just confined to stilted whole class repetitions of sentence produced by you. If the class tries to speak at the same time, they automatically slow down in the intonation and the rhythm. So a lost whole class repetition does of course have its advantages as it allows weaker students to build confidence with speaking without being in the limelight. So chorus drills are described above, but limit them and always move on to letting individuals speak. Speaking real language. As with listening, make sure they always have a valid reason for speaking. The more realistic they need for communication, the more effective an activity will be. In other words, get them to ask their neighbor. Speaking. So, further suggestions. Vary the types of speaking and the listening activities you do. Keep them interested by introducing new approaches to speaking in class. This could mean talking to different people, talking to different numbers of people, and speaking as a whole class, half class, or in small groups. For different levels in the same class, you can ask them to listen for different things.